Alrighty.
You are.
Okay, you want me to get started now?
Sure.
Okie doke. Hello, everybody. My name is Andrew Farrell. I wish I could see you guys. I wish I could be there in person with you today. I'm sure I've told you guys many times in my budgeting and saving classes, all of the kind of car issues that I've had over the last year. We had another one this morning. My partner was out running some errands before work and got rear-ended out on one of the streets here in SF. Wasn't too bad, thankfully. We have a little bit of an issue with the bumper and one of the tail lights, but no one was hurt. Everything's okay. I've just been trying to get that all taken care of this morning. So I appreciate everybody's flexibility. And again, wish I could be there today. But unfortunately, life throws some curveballs at us, and this is just where we are. So on that note, today we are going to be talking about achieving financial freedom. So this is just kind of getting you guys in the mindset or giving you guys some ideas of what long-term planning looks like, and how we can kind of achieve some kind of financial freedom down the road. A lot of this stuff is not going to be things that are probably super applicable to where you guys are in life right now. It's more so just kind of planting the seeds, getting yourself familiar with some terminology, and kind of um, answering some questions about what things might look like down the road, what opportunities you might have to invest in your guys' future. Um, I cannot see if anybody has questions, unfortunately, because I'm not there. But Syra, if there is a question or anybody has any extra clarification, you can just interrupt me. Hopefully, I'll be able to hear that and I can get anything else addressed. Otherwise, I'll have my email at the end of this, so you guys can shoot me an email if you have any other questions or need anything else explained in a little bit more detail. I want to set the precedent by letting everybody know that I am not a financial advisor. So I talk a little bit about what like different types of investments are, not so much in like the stock market and annuities and things like that. But that is not my expertise. We have people who are trained specifically to handle like stocks and things like that. So if that is something that you're curious about, we have a lot of resources within Patelco. We have something online called Bonsai. It's on our patelco.org website. It's kind of got a lot of self-guided modules and things like that that can explore some of those more in-depth topics. But everybody has an expertise, and that unfortunately is not mine. So today, instead, we are going to be covering. Oh, come on. There we go. Short, mid, and long-term goals, what they look like, and kind of how to set them. A little bit about what different types of investments are. Again, not just like stocks, but different ways that you can invest in your future. Pretty much anything is an investment that you're, spending money on. So we're going to talk about how that looks and what that means. We're going to try to explain compound interest. I really like compound interest, but it's not always the easiest topic to explain. I'm going to try to tackle that today, though. A little bit about what home buying planning looks like, what a mortgage is, and stuff like that. How you can plan for retirement, types of retirement accounts, so IRAs, 401k, Roth versus traditional, Social Security, and how that fits into retirement and long time planning. And then, if we have time at the end, a little bit about who we are at Patelco and some products and services we have that might be able to benefit everybody on their path to financial success. So, savings goals. We talked about short, mid-term, and long-term. Short-term goals are basically goals that can be accomplished within 1 year. So when you guys are setting goals for yourself and setting savings categories and savings buckets, these are the things that you might be able to accomplish within the next year. They tend to be easier to achieve and they focus on current issues. So saving for a vacation next year might be a short-term goal. Perhaps, depending on your financial situation, saving for like a down payment for a car, that could be a short-term goal as well. If anybody has some time at the end of this, maybe write down some short, mid, and long-term goals for yourself and work on how you can achieve those. But the short-term goals are really just things that we can accomplish within the next year. Beyond that, we have got midterm goals. So midterm are normally between 1 to 5 years to accomplish. I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought did you have a question? I'm so sorry. Okay. Sorry, the mic is cutting in and out a little bit, so I'm picking up a bit of feedback. I wonder if there's a way that I can like
I'll mute it.
Okay, perfect. Just unmute and yell if you have a question. Midterm goals, like I said, financial goals that take between 1 to 5 years to accomplish. This can also be saving for a car, depending on kind of what your time frame is. It could be maybe saving to get your own place, saving to move out of your parents, or saving to get an apartment. Something that you can achieve within the next 1 to 5 years that would fall into the category of a midterm goal. Can share traits with both short and long-term goals. It's kind of that middle sweet spot. Short-term goals do tend to focus, like I said earlier, on just current issues, things that you're going to be able to accomplish soon. Long-term goals tend to be like way down the road. Midterm goals is kind of that like flexible spot that, depending on what your values are and depending on what your financial situation is, depending on how aggressively you're able to save, that's kind of where those flexible goals come into place. And then long-term goals, these are financial goals that take 5 or longer years to accomplish. This is more major life events and they require periodic reevaluation. So the big long-term goals would be like retirement saving, saving for a house if you ever want to buy a home. Family planning is usually a long-term goal. These are things that are not really in our immediate future. They don't focus on any current issues that we have. But if they are things that we ultimately do want out of life, we are going to have to start planning on them earlier rather than later. Long-term goals will generally always take at least 5 years, sometimes more, 10, 15 plus years to accomplish. So if anybody is at any point trying to think about retirement or things like that, it's stuff that you do have to start planting the seeds for earlier. So hopefully, depending on what our financial situations are and depending on what our goals are, we are able to tend to a lot of these in the respective ways that we're able to. I can probably share examples for all of these. A short-term goal that I have for myself is we are planning a trip to go to Japan next year. That is kind of a short-term goal I have. I'm hoping to go probably in October. Right now, I'm already racking up some points on my credit card to put towards that. That's something that I'm tending to a little bit there. Midterm goal would be probably, I want to say, getting a new place. We've moved into this place recently, probably in the last like year or so, but eventually when family planning is starting, when we want to get a pet, we're going to want to move somewhere that has a little bit more space, a little bit more accessibility. So that would be a midterm goal for myself. And then a long-term goal for myself is home ownership. I am keeping my fingers crossed that one day I will be able to buy a house in the Bay Area. It is tough with the way that mortgage prices are right now and the way that interest rates are, but I do have a little account that I set aside for a down payment for a mortgage. I kind of slowly put towards that. Depending on how much discretionary income I have is how much goes into that bucket. That could be probably 10 plus years down the road. So it's not something that I'm super focused on right now, but it is something that I still want to have on my roadmap so that I don't just totally ignore that goal. And I keep it kind of somewhat in my frame of mind. All right, so at a young age, which is all of you guys, you can begin planting the seeds of long-term financial success by number one is opening a retirement account. So I don't expect everybody to go out there and open up an IRA, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But if anybody has a part-time job and their job offers any kind of 401k plan, I would definitely recommend opting into that. We're going to talk a little bit about what 401ks mean here in a little bit. But you really are just paying yourself. That money grows, and the earlier that you start, the better off you'll be later on in life. Saving for down payments. I talked about this. I've been saving for a down payment for a house for a couple years now. But if you don't have reliable transportation or you're looking to buy a car, starting saving small amounts and setting that midterm goal can help you get there. Paying off credit card debt. I know we talked in our credit presentation that some of you guys out there have credit cards. Some of you are looking to start getting your first credit card. The easiest way to set yourself up for success long term is to, number one, not accumulate credit card debt if you can help it. So paying off any credit card balance you have before interest accrues. But if you do have a balance on your credit card, paying that debt off works just like saving does. Saving, if you put money in a savings account, you normally earn a small percentage of interest back. If you're paying off a balance on a credit card, that is interest that you are saving and paying. And those credit card interest rates sometimes are 20, 30+%. So being as aggressive as possible about paying off credit card debts can help you save extra money that you're just throwing away to interest. And once you have those paid off, you will then have more money left over to save for the things that you want out of life. Increasing your earnings potential. You guys are all doing that right now by sitting in this class and being enrolled at Berkeley City College. Getting an education and paying for schooling is an investment in and of itself. You are paying money for school with the hopes of, getting higher earnings increase later on in life. So you guys are already doing that. Building or improving your credit score. The higher credit that you have, the easier you are likely to get approved for home loans and auto loans and things like that, but also the better rates you'll have, which means the less you'll pay in interest, which means the more money that you'll have in your pocket. And finally, begin paying off student loans. This one is a little tricky for me to talk about because I have student loans and I pay the absolute minimum on them because I am always keeping my fingers crossed for the day that one day loans will get forgiven. But I do recommend not ignoring the student loans completely, not just putting them in forbearance and hoping that, one day they'll go away, because they might not. It might take, a very, very long time from now. And student loans can also have a pretty high interest rate. Even if they don't, an education costs a lot of money. So a, small interest rate on a very, very large balance can still be a lot of dollars that rack up over time. All right, so intro to investing. There are different types of investments out there, and I'm not talking types of investment accounts like stocks and bonds and things like that, even though that is a part of it. I'm talking low, mid, and high risk investments. And I bet that most of you guys are already doing some of these in some capacity right now. Investing is basically just expending money with the expectation of achieving a profit over time as a result. So the idea is you are buying something, hoping to get something back in return. That is what a return on investment is. And that's really all investing means. It's a pretty simple concept. Some of the most common things people invest their money into are, number one is stocks, bonds, mutual funds, things like that. That is buying stock in a company, giving some money to buy some shares, hoping that the company will increase in profit over time, and that you will then earn money off of that company's success. That is what the stock market is. That's how it's worked. It's how it's worked for years. A lot of people can, make a lot of money playing the stock market, but that would be a pretty high risk investment. Deposit accounts are also an investment. Putting your money into a savings account or a CD is technically an investment. You are depositing money into an account with the expectation that you will get money back. Depending on what the interest rate is, it could be a lot of money, it could be a little bit of money. Financial plans, these are like retirement accounts, these are annuities, these are things that you pay into, again, with the hope of making a profit off of it way down the line. Property is also an investment. So buying a home, especially here in the Bay Area where houses appreciate in value at a very, very quick rate. Buying a house, my aunt got a house in the Concord area 20 years ago. I think she paid like $200,000 for it for a condo. That same condo now 20 years later is worth about $700,000. So that was a pretty good investment. The what she paid versus if she sold it now, she would make about a $500,000 profit. Business ventures is an investment. You are investing in your business idea, hoping that it will take off in the long term. And we talked about it earlier, but education is also an investment. You guys are paying money to Berkeley City College in exchange for an education with the hopes that because you get that degree, because you have that education, you've increased your skill set, you've become more marketable to employers. You will then make more money than if you did not go to school at all. So these are all ways that you can invest in yourself and other things to make a little bit more of a return from the money that you put out. That's why people talk a lot about good debt and bad debt. Good debt would be like student loan is a good debt. A mortgage is generally considered good debt. Auto loans is dicey because cars don't appreciate in value over time. They depreciate pretty quickly, but it is like necessary debt. Bad debt would be like credit card debt. If you're spending a lot of money on just stuff on a credit card with a 30% interest rate that you're not going to reap any kind of thing back from that debt, that would be considered bad debt. So whenever you are going into debt or whenever you are looking to take out any kind of loan of any kind, just try to ask yourself if this is a good investment, or if this is going to reflect as good debt on your credit score, good debt to your financial health, or bad debt. All right. So we talked about it a little bit, risk and reward for investing. Like I said, there are three main types of investments: low risk, mid risk, high risk, sort of like short term, mid term, long term goals. This is kind of the repurposed for investment purposes. So risk and reward go hand in hand when investing. Generally speaking, the higher the risk, the higher the potential reward can be. So low risk, these are things like little to no risk of losing your initial investment, but also the gains are much lower. So like I said earlier, putting your money into a savings account that has a 3 or a 5% interest rate or whatever it is, that is a very low risk investment. The funds are insured by the FDIC or the NCUA or whoever you deposit the money into. So the risk of losing that money that you put in is very, very low, sometimes zero risk. Putting your money into a CD, for example, CDs are normally, depending on the rate environment, can be 6, 7% on the high end, which is a decent interest rate back. But because the funds are all federally insured, you're putting them within a bank that you know and you trust. You're not going to lose that money. If the bank tanks, you'll still get your money back out there. There's no risk of really losing your funds. But the flip side of that is that the return that you get is only going to be 5 or 6% of what you put in. Pretty easy to calculate. Low risk, low reward. Still can be very good. I have monies in CDs and savings accounts. I still shop around for the best rates because if I'm going to put my money away, I might as well earn something off of it. But you're not really going to get rich with these low risk investments. Medium risk, these have a higher likelihood of losing money, but generally it's not going to be catastrophic and the returns can be much larger. I would say that real estate would be considered a medium risk because it is guaranteed that the property will appreciate in value, or pretty much all but guaranteed. It will take some time. Like I said, my aunt's house has appreciated in value several hundreds of thousands of dollars, but it took 20 plus years to get there. It wasn't something she really had to manage a whole lot, but that was pretty much a sure thing, especially in the Bay Area and a lot of these places that mortgage prices or home prices will appreciate in value over time. But there can be a risk to that if you take out a mortgage and you can't afford the mortgage, or you are not able to keep up with mortgage payments or property taxes, or there's HOA, homeowner association fees involved that you can't pay. The bank can foreclose on the house, which can negatively impact your credit score. You'll lose the house. The initial money that you put in as a down payment will be lost. So there is definite risk involved. It's not a sure thing that you're going to get a guaranteed return like it would be in a savings account. But generally speaking, they're a little bit safer, and you're still not going to get super rich quick on a mortgage. And then high risk investments. This is chance of loss or underperformance can be high, but rewards can be huge if successful. This can include stocks and basically business ventures. So, if you buy stock in a startup that you really believe in and that startup takes off, you can make a lot of money in not a lot of time by doing those business stock trading purchases. I like to think like if I would have bought stock in, I wasn't old enough, but in Apple or something like that when it was first coming up, you could put a very small amount of money in startups like that, and within a few years, you know how quick businesses can really take off. You can be a multimillionaire with that. But the flip side is if you invest, 5, 10,000 plus dollars in a business and it tanks, which a lot of businesses out there do, you have lost all that money. There is zero return on investment with it. So the stock market is a very volatile, tricky game to play. I myself, like I said, don't even really work in financial advising, so I can't speak to this too much. I don't invest too much myself because I'm not super risky with my money. But the people who do play the stock game and make a lot of money on it, more power to them. Business ventures also would be a high risk investment. You have to pay money to start a business for yourself. If you have an idea, you got to get that idea off the ground, which costs money. It costs overhead. You have to pay for supplies. You have to pay for advertising, all that good stuff up front to get your business off the ground. And if the business succeeds, you can be a multimillionaire as well. If the business does not succeed, you have potentially lost quite a bit of money with no return. So all kinds of risk and reward options for different investments that are out there. There's no right or wrong answer for this. It's really just whatever you are comfortable giving, whatever you're comfortable spending, and whatever you're comfortable potentially losing. Because with a lot of these investments, you do have to consider the very real possibility that you will lose money, which is why I don't do a lot of high risk investments because I am too greedy. All right. Compound interest. This is one of my favorite things to talk about. I'm going to try to explain it as best as I can. Compound interest occurs when you earn interest on money that you've saved, which is the principal amount, and on the interest that you earn along the way. So this kind of goes back with the low risk investments of putting money into a savings account or a CD. You put that money into an account. Let's say the account has 3% interest that you earn. Over that first year, the initial amount that you put in, the principal balance, you are earning 3%. That money that you earn then gets deposited into the same account. At the end of that year, that balance that you now have, which is the initial principal amount that you put in plus the interest that you earned, you are now earning 3% on that balance, which is a higher number that you initially put in, which means that the amount of interest you're earning in the subsequent year, even though it's the same rate, is going to be a more dollar amount because it's earned on a higher initial dollar amount. I have a little graph here, and hopefully this can make a little bit more sense. So in this hypothetical situation, your starting amount is $1,000. So we're going to say that everybody gets $1,000 here in the class today. I wish I could give you all $1,000, but I cannot. You have your $1,000, you put it into a savings account. That $1,000 that you put in is your starting amount. That is called your principal balance. You earn 5% in the savings account. So we'll say it's a 5% CD. You put the $1,000 in there. It's locked away. So your rate is locked in. You can't pull the money out. You are earning 5% on $1,000 for the first year. That is also called the interest rate, rate of return, APY, which is annual percentage rate or annual percentage yield. That is what you're earning on the $1,000. Interest on this is calculated once a year. That is called the compounding frequency. So basically what that's saying is for this year, this is the compounding frequency period, you are going to earn 5%, the API, on that $1,000 principal balance that you put in. So that means that at the end of the first year, you now have $1,050, which is the $1,000 that you started out with, plus 5% of $1,000 over a year is another $50. You now have $1,050. You've made 53 bucks. Now we start another year. So it's rolling over. Your new principal balance is now $1,050 because your $50 that you've earned in interest earnings is starting over into the new year rollover period. So you have a new principal balance for year two. That new principal balance is $1,050, which means at the end of the second year, all that still is the same. You still earn your 5% because we'll say in this situation, your CD is a 5-year term. So year number two, principal balance is $1,050 instead of $1,000. You're earning 5%, which means the second year, you haven't added any extra money yourself, but you are now earning $52.50 as opposed to $50, meaning that year three, your principal balance is $1,250 or $1,102.50, which that is your new principal balance, which means that at the end of year three, the amount of interest you're going to earn is even more, probably like 56 bucks, so on and so forth. I hope that all makes sense. If it doesn't, please interrupt me. But this basically just says that if you put money in a savings account, no matter what the interest is, and just let it sit there and let it grow, it will grow over time because you are going to be earning interest not only on the amount that you first put in, but also on the interest that you earn along the way. And how that looks long term can be pretty shocking. So compounding interest supercharges your savings, and it's especially powerful if you have a long time to stay invested. So in this graphic right here, a single investment of $6,000 grew to approximately $90,000 after 40 years, and that is thanks to compounding interest. So you see right here that initial investment, that blue line, stayed the same the entire time. That is the first $6,000 that you put in. The simple interest is that lime green line. So that is just only if you earned this interest rate. I don't know what this is on here. I think it's probably like 5% or something. Over,
Hey,
yeah.
we do have a question for you. You can go ahead.
Okay, my question is that you mentioned that student debt is a good thing to have, well, not a good thing to have, but a good, debt. I guess that's how we said it, and correct me if I'm not saying it the right way. And I was wondering, why would that be something that would be like a good debt?
So I consider student debt good debt because it is something that you are going to get a return on investment from. I look at good debt as debt that you are putting in with the expectation of getting a reward back from. Student loans, I would consider that because while, school can be very expensive and we can have a, whole conversation about whether or not school should cost what it is. The fact of the matter is that is the reality we live in. School costs X amount of dollars, but you are going into debt with the expectation that you will earn enough money to then pay that student loan off and then have, and then some as life goes on. Bad debt would be like, I have a credit card with a $10,000 spending limit and I just go to, the mall and rack up a $10,000 bill on clothes and makeup and crap. That's not going to give anything back. If I could choose to have $10,000 that I'm investing in myself and my education versus $10,000 that I'm spending on a bunch of stuff I don't need, obviously one is better debt than the other. You're still $10,000 in debt either way. But with the student loans, there is the expectation that you will have a return on that investment. Whereas $10,000 in credit card debt, you're not getting anything back from that. Does that make sense?
Yes, and so if you were, credit lenders looking at the fact that you paid it back and so it's built increasing your credit score, if you were to do it on a timely manner and maybe not just pay the basic, but pay added, then they're looking at all those. So if you're interested into getting something bigger, for instance, if you got your PE and you wanted your master's, they'll be more willing to loan you the money. Is that
Yeah.
why it's
Credit lenders look at a lot of different things. So they will look at, for example, like on a credit card, they are going to look at not only if you make your payments on time, but how much debt you have. So if you have like a credit card with, we'll use the $10,000 example again, a credit card with a $10,000 spending limit, and you only have, a $1,000 or $2,000 balance on there, that is going to look a lot better than if you have a credit card with a $10,000 limit that is maxed out to $10,000, even if you are making your payments, your minimum payment on time every month. They look at your payment frequency and how often you make the payments on time, but they also look at your usage to make sure that you are kind of a responsible borrower. And you also are, I think to your earlier question, more likely to get not only approval for things, but also more likely to get credit limit increases if you keep your balance low and keep things paid off on time, because it's showing to lenders and to credit bureaus that you are not racking up a bunch of bad debt. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, for sure. But back to this compound interest. So you can see this dark green right here. This is the compound interest that you earn. So a few years, it's not a whole lot, but the longer that it goes, the faster that it moves up. And you might be thinking like 40 years is such a long time and I don't have $6,000 to save right now. And so, I don't have the time for that investment. But this is where retirement savings really comes into place, because retirement savings works the exact same way. And if you start contributing money to a 401k or to some retirement account with the expectation that, if we're all 18, 20 years old, we're retiring in 40, 45 years, you are going to really be grateful the earlier you start. This is one of the many reasons why I say that starting saving for retirement and saving for long-term things young is the best thing that you can do, even if it's a small amount, because over time, your savings and your investments and your retirement accounts can really, really supercharge. If you're earning money on the money that you earn, you're just going to be in great shape way, way down the road when it is, retirement age. And, that is going to come for all of us. We're not getting any younger. So you want to start investing in your future sooner rather than later. All right, home buying. I'm not going to talk a whole lot about this either, but I did just kind of want to acknowledge it. So buying a home or getting a mortgage can be a great financial investment if it's affordable, as home prices are increasing in value, and that increases your equity. So equity in home basically just means the amount of your home value that you actually own. The simplest way of saying it is, if you have a house that is worth $200,000, you buy it for $200,000. So whether you own that amount or you pay to the bank or whatever, you owe $200,000. You get a loan for the whole thing on a house that is valued at $200,000. You have zero equity. The amount that you owe is the same amount of the value of the home. But let's say as time goes on, you pay off that mortgage and the home increases in value. So 5 years down the line, you have paid $50,000 off on that mortgage. Your balance that you owe the bank now is no longer $200,000. It is now $150,000. That home is also appreciated in value $50,000 because, homes increase in value as time goes on. That home is now worth $250,000. You owe $150,000. That difference between what you owe and what the value of the home is, that is your equity in the house. That is how much that you actually own in it. You don't owe the bank that amount. That is the lendable equity that you have in your home. It's worth $250, you owe $150, and as time goes on, you pay it off more. It increases in value. The amount of equity that you have in your home increases quite a bit. There's a lot that you can do with equity in your home. So when you you pay the whole house off and the house is paid and you have all of it, you can sell the house and pocket all that money. You can do whatever you want with it. You can also do like loans against your home. So if you have $100,000 in equity in your house, you can take a loan against that. That's what a second mortgage is. And use that for, whatever you want, for home improvements, for, personal usage. That is going to have a lot lower of an interest rate than getting like a personal loan or a credit card, because I think we talked about this in our credit session, but that would be a secured loan because there is a home backing the loan, meaning that the rate is going to be a lot lower because, again, if you don't pay it off, they can repossess the house. So having a mortgage, in short, can be a great financial asset, but they are very expensive to buy. There are also a lot of other fees and costs that come into home ownership. In my apartment right now, my drawer broke yesterday. I called the owner and he sent someone out and it was taken care of in a day. I had to do nothing. When you own a house, that all falls on you. Paying the property taxes all falls on you. If there's a homeowners association, that falls on you. Anything like that is an out-of-pocket expense that you have. Those are all unrecoverable expenses. So mortgages, very, very good if you can afford them. But if not, it's not something that we should be really, really pursuing unless we are solely in the financial space to be able to do so, which is why it probably will not happen for me for a very long time. Tips for some home buying preparation. Number one, start saving early. I wish I would have started saving even earlier, but I didn't. All I can do now is look forward and try my best with, what my goals are. Check and polish your credit. A lot of times when you're applying for a credit card or an auto loan or any other kind of loan that's out there, there's a lot of wiggle room that the lenders will do. They can kind of send it to underwriters for review and listen to your case and make kind of exception bases. Normally for home ownership, for buying a mortgage, depending on the financial institution you're buying from, they will have a minimum credit score that if you are below this, it is a hard no. And it's normally 680, 690, sometimes around there. So you want to make sure your credit's in good shape. You want to make sure that anything that is holding your credit back, maybe it is, to your point earlier, high credit card balances, maybe you have incorrect things on your credit report. You just want to make sure everything that is on your credit report is accurate and healthy. Explore mortgage options. There are a lot of good first-time home buyer options. Also, if anybody has like military in their family or is military themselves, there's lots of additional mortgage options there. So you want to do some research and find what is the best way for you to go about doing the home ownership. Um, First time home buyer and assistance programs, we just talked about that. And then exploring rates and fees. Buying a home should not be a decision that anybody takes lightly. One financial institution may have a 4% mortgage, but with a 5% closing fee on the principal value. Others may have a higher rate, but no fees. It requires a lot of math, a lot of crunching numbers, a lot of finding out what bottom line is going to be the ultimate most affordable. So whenever we do get to that point in our lives, which hopefully for everybody here, myself included, is someday, do a lot of homework, do a lot of research, talk with mortgage advisors. Patelco has plenty of them. It's a free service that we offer all of our members that can help you with the home buying process, and just make as wise of a decision as you can. If anybody has any additional questions or wants to learn more about just the mortgage process, we have a lot of great informational resources on our website. That's the full URL, but if you just go to our website, patelco.org, click on the loans tab, and then click on home loans or mortgages from there, it'll take you to the same place. We got a lot of good stuff on there too. All right, now we are going to talk about the fun stuff, retirement planning. So 401ks and IRAs are the two biggest types of retirement accounts that are out there. 401k is a retirement savings and investment plan offered by employers as a part of your job's benefits package. So whenever you get a new job, a lot of them will have some kind of 401k option that you can enroll in. This isn't just for like your long-term career. I worked at a bookstore in college that offered a 401k plan. I didn't know what it was. I didn't care at that point. I was like, you can take my money. I want my paycheck to be as big as possible. In hindsight, I wish I would have taken advantage of it, even if it was just a small amount that I contributed, because they can roll over to other 401k plans. And again, like I said, the earlier that you start, the better off you're going to be. Basically, how a 401k works is your employer will offer you some kind of 401k plan. You can have a portion of your pay automatically saved into that 401k plan with your name on it. Sometimes employers will offer a match if you contribute up to a certain amount. So I can use Patelco, for example. Patelco does up to a 5% match on your 401k, meaning that if I contribute 5% of each of my paychecks to go into my 401k account, Patelco will also put 5% of what that dollar amount is into it as well. So they will match me up to that amount. I can still go over. Right now, I'm doing about 10%. Patelco still puts in 5. You can go over what the match is, but if you go under, it'll only match up to the amount that you're doing. So if their match is 5% and you put in 3, they're going to do 3. If you do 5, they'll do 5. If you do 8, they're still going to do 5. Just find out whatever employers matches, and try to plan that accordingly. Contributed funds can then be placed into investment options that are chosen by the employer or the plan provider. If you do nothing, they will just sit in a 401k account that normally has some kind of an interest rate associated with it, and grow over time. But you can also talk to your plan provider, and they can have different other kinds of plans that are approved by the employer that money can be invested into to also grow as well. And then whenever you leave your job, if you're working a job that's just a part-time job and you don't really want to do a 401k investment because you don't plan on staying there for longer than a year or two, that is quite all right. Those funds are already what's called vested into a 401k. That's just a tax term. And when you go to another job, you can just transfer those funds from that 401k into a 401k for your new job or into an IRA, which we're going to talk about here in a second. So those funds are always going to travel around with you. You can have different 401ks in different places, but doesn't matter. Once you get retirement age, you can then take that money out and use that to live off of. And I promise you, if you start saving when you are 20, 25 years old for your retirement, by the time you hit 60, 65 years old, that small amount that you contribute plus additional contributions you have as your earnings increases means that you are going to have quite a nest egg for yourself when retirement comes. I just talked about this, but even if you don't plan on staying at a job for a long time, 401k contributions can always be rolled over. So there is no excuse to not opt into a 401k. Now, IRAs are the other kind of retirement plan that is out there. An IRA, which stands for Individual Retirement Account, is a long-term savings investment account that helps individuals save money for retirement. Unlike a 401k, these accounts are opened and managed by the individual and not an employer. So with the 401k, it is part of the employer's benefits package. They provide it for you, they manage it, they will do the match, they'll handle all of that. It is housed by your employer, it's opened by your employer, it's all kind of done through them. IRAs are things that you manage yourself. So you go to a bank account, you say, I want to open up an IRA, and that's just it. You're managing the contributions. It's all coming from you. Contributed funds can then be invested anywhere the individual would like. So with Patelco, we have IRA CDs and we have IRA money market accounts that work the exact same way as a regular CD or a regular money market savings. It's just those funds are vested in an IRA. And vested just means that the funds are kind of coded for tax purposes as being retirement funds, which means if you take them out early, there's some tax implications. It's really just meant to be for long-term savings. The catches with IRA, or the caveats there, is that there are maximum contributions every year. 401ks don't have that. IRAs do. I think for 2024, it's normally around like 6,500 or 7,000 that you can contribute max per year. But anybody earning an income is eligible to open an IRA. So if you just have a part-time job that you work minimum wage 10 hours a week, you are still eligible to go to a bank account and open an IRA for yourself and start saving. If you want to do that, go for it. I'm not going to push that as hard because, when we're young and we are living on more limited means, I think that spending that extra money you have on movie tickets or whatever is probably a little bit more important than you putting your own money into a retirement account. But I do still recommend 401ks because that is something you really just don't even see coming into your account. And it's still a way to kind of tend to your retirement goals and tend to your long-term self as early as possible. So just a little bit of comparing and contrasting for the two. Both 401k and IRA accounts are tax advantaged, meaning there are tax benefits for using this account, such as tax deferment, meaning you're not paying taxes on those earnings until way down the road.
Question?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I would like to ask, because right now I have a Roth IRA, but I just never invested on it. I just let it sit and put it money there. How do you go about for someone who's like financially illiterate? How would you recommend them to like research on their own, or like is there resources in like your website?
There are, yeah. So same thing, if you go to just patelco.org and go to the savings tab, there is going to be an IRA account there that will kind of give a little bit of explanations about what an IRA is and different kinds of accounts that you can do. I also, this is again, not something that I am the biggest expert on. I know more about this than I do like investing, but there are so many videos like on YouTube, if you just say like IRA explained or how to maximize your IRA, that really like the experts can explain it to you in layman's terms. But if you already have a Roth IRA for yourself, that means you already have some funds that are vested in your retirement. And for you, it's just about then finding the best place to put those funds. So if they're just sitting like in an IRA savings account, that is still very good. It's better than nothing. But you can look into other financial institutions and see what their interest rates are, see what products and services they have. In your instance, you are just kind of looking for probably the best interest rate because you're not going to access those funds. You don't need to care about accessibility or things like that because you're not at retirement age. So you're just looking for a place to put that IRA money that is going to earn you the highest interest rate back. Patelco has IRA CDs that are probably in the like 5-ish% range, which is pretty good. You might find something better out there. If you do find an account that has a higher interest rate, or you've done a lot of research and you say, okay, this bank account is where I want to put my IRA funds, they have the best rate. I know I'm going to guarantee myself 7%, we'll say, for the next 5 years. You then have to do what's called a rollover, which basically just means you go to the financial institution that currently is holding the IRA and just say, like, I want to roll this IRA over into this other financial institution. There's going to be paperwork and forms involved you have to sign. They normally handle most of the heavy lifting. You just kind of come sign the stuff, and then they deal with transferring the money over. But you can do rollovers. There's no tax implications for doing that. It's just about moving the funds over into an account that is going to earn you a little bit more.
And so you put in money, I'm assuming that, is it already, like, can I put in money and not, like, not tax it? Like, even if I don't know if it's a dumb question, but like,
No
like
problem.
I've saved a lot of money throughout the years, like before I was 18.
Mhm.
And I don't know, I'm wondering whether I could just dump it all in there and
You
be
can with a Roth, you can, because Roth IRAs are after tax. So here, I'm going to circle back to your question here in 1 second because I'm going to talk about Roth here in just a minute. So just sit tight. I'll have something for you in a second here.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, just the comparing and contrasting of 401k and IRAs. 401ks are employer-sponsored retirement plans, whereas IRAs are individual. So 401ks are housed and opened by the employer. IRAs, you do it all yourself. 401ks offer employer matches. Usually, IRAs, because you own it solely, there is no one else matching. It is solely you that is dealing with the contributions that are being put in there. 401ks generally have fewer investment options to choose from because it's employee sponsored. You can only put the funds in the short list of plans that your employer has offered for the 401k. Whereas with an IRA, there is a wide selection of investment options. Not only can you just put it in an IRA account, like a savings or a CD account, you can also invest your IRA funds in whatever you'd like. 401ks have higher contribution limits. There might be a cap, but it's super high. It's like 50,000 something a year, whereas IRAs generally have lower contribution limits that you put in for yourself. Here we go, Roth versus traditional. So this will answer your question, hopefully, or at least get you a better idea. Both 401ks and IRAs can be either traditional or Roth. Traditional Roth or traditional 401k or IRA means that funds that are contributed are pre-taxed, whereas Roth means that funds are contributed after your tax deductions. So when you contribute funds to a traditional 401k or an IRA, you make, your paycheck is $2,500 pre-tax before, any of the Social Security and federal government taxes are taken out. That is when it gets contributed into your IRA or your 401k, and the funds will then grow based on the interest rate pre-taxed. You will then, when you pull the money out at retirement age, pay taxes on that amount at that point. Roth means that you put money in after taxes have already been deducted. So you get an actual, your paycheck is $2,500. Taxes are taken out for Social Security and federal state taxes. Your end of day, net paycheck is, we'll say $2,100. Then that amount is taken off to go into your Roth. There are pros and cons to both. The funds will then grow after they've already been taxed in Roth, but when you withdraw them at retirement age, you're not paying any extra taxes because you've already paid on the deductions. At traditional, you paid taxes on the funds at the time of withdrawals. Roth, you withdraw the funds tax-free. Traditional, they are tax deductible, which means that any kind of earnings that you get or anything that you put in can be used as a tax deduction when you are filing your taxes at the end of the year. Whereas with the Roth, all IRA accounts can be Roth accounts. Not every employer will offer a Roth 401k option. Patelco does. I use a Roth just because I am hoping that my income will increase over time and that the amount that I'm paying in taxes now will be less than it's going to be down the road. But that is a risk or an investment I'm taking, and you never really know. So to your question earlier, if you have money that you've saved, that's money that's in a savings account that has already been taxed because it's money that you've earned, it's money that somehow has made its way into your savings bucket, that whatever you have, and you have a Roth IRA already open, you can in fact just dump all that money into a Roth IRA if you want. because there's no additional tax implications there. That's money that's already been taxed, and you are putting it into an account that is set up to be post-taxed, retirement account. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, for sure. But I would still recommend looking around and finding the account that has the best interest rate or the best return, because that's just more money that you're going to be able to withdraw tax-free, or without paying taxes on it at retirement age. All right. So if you follow these tips, you'll be able to get ahead of retirement planning while you are young. Number one, start early. If you do have the means to open up an IRA, I am not going to stand in your way, but I would recommend anybody who is working, if your employer offers a 401k option, to contribute a small amount. So anybody who has even a part-time job, if you're not sure, next time you go work, talk to your boss, see what they offer. And if you can opt into even just like 3%, I promise you will not even notice a difference on your paychecks after taxes and everything are taken out for a 3% deduction. But you start small, you put a little bit in, you're not going to use that money anyways for decades down the road. So the earlier that you start, the better off you are going to be long term, not only because you're saving for longer, but also that money that you're saving is going to be earning interest and compounding for a longer period of time. When I was working in a branch, I would say the number one thing that I heard from people, especially who were like probably in their late 30s, early 40s, was just, God, I wish I would have started saving for retirement earlier. When you're in your 20s, you don't think about it being something that's front of mind. Retirement is such a foreign, long down the road concept. But with the way Social Security is going, it's something that you do probably need to start thinking about sooner rather than later. So I would just challenge everybody or encourage everybody to look into what 401k options are already out there for those of you who are working, for those of you who aren't. Whenever you do start working, even if it's a part-time job, finding out what you can contribute, starting small and then letting it grow over time. Stay educated on retirement planning choices. You guys are doing that all right now. But whenever you hear about a job talking about a 401k or 401k changes or options, even if you don't know all the answers, go to your financial institution, talk to the plan provider, and see if you can make a good financial decision for yourself. Make the savings automatically. Do not pass up a 401k match. If your job offers you a 3% match on your 401k and you say, okay, I'm only going to put 3% of my paycheck in, you're getting 6% of your paycheck. Your boss is giving you free money. Don't miss out on that opportunity. And last, avoid accumulating debt, because debt is the number one killer of long-term financial success. Unless it is good debt, there is such thing as good debt. Student loans, for example, like we talked about, that is debt that is going to have a good return on investment. But try to avoid racking up credit card debt, auto loans that are too nice that you don't really need. Try to be as mindful about debt as possible, especially when you're at a young age, because if you start with a large amount of debt when you're young, and don't necessarily have the earnings to pay that off, that debt can follow you around for years and years and years and years. All right, how much time we got? Just a few minutes. We'll talk a little bit about Social Security. So Social Security is a federal program in the United States that provides retirement benefits and disability income to qualified people and their spouses, children, and survivors. So we all pay into this whenever we have 5 minutes, thank you. Whenever we get our paycheck, small amount gets put into Social Security, and then those funds that we all pay into are being used to supplement the income of people who are qualified to receive it. Come on now. So like I said, workers pay into the program normally through your payroll withholding. 62 and up who have paid into the system for at least 10 years can then qualify to receive the benefits. And people who can't work due to disability, people who are surviving spouses of people who had disabilities, or children may also qualify depending on the situation. There is a lot of talk about Social Security running out, that we are paying out more than people are paying in, and that it may not be a program that is around for too much longer. I am pretty far away from 62 years old, so I do not know if this is going to be around for me. It's also not something that we should be banking on as our main retirement income, This is something that is intended to be like supplemental income. For a lot of people back in the olden days, when all jobs had pension, they would be guaranteed their pension from their job plus this, and they'd be chilling at retirement age. That is unfortunately not the situation anymore, which is why it is extra important for us to start investing in our own retirements and our own future sooner rather than later. I don't know how this is going to look if it runs out. I would assume that if Social Security runs out, we will receive a certain amount that we paid into it up to that point back. But, you know, who knows? Social Security as a long-term plan is a giant question mark right now. So it's not something that we can rely on to just fuel our retirement. This is another reason why 401ks and retirement planning while you're young is ultra important, because if Social Security runs out and you don't work a job that offers a pension or offers any kind of security blanket for income after you retire, then there is no retiring. This is how people sometimes work well into their 80s because they don't have any other choice financially. You guys do not want to be in that position. I certainly don't want to be in that position. So start saving for retirement young. Even if it's a small amount, you can always up your contributions later, but you do want to get started as soon as possible, and your future self will thank you. All right, so some final tips before I let you guys go for setting everyone up for success. Number one, it is never too early to start investing. You guys are investing right now by going in school, invest in your retirement, invest in your future self. Things that seem decades and decades away may seem so out of sight, out of mind, but it's never too early to start thinking about those things and planting tiny little seeds that will grow. Always maintain your financial goals. I would like everybody, some point this week, maybe after the class, just think about what your short, midterm, and long-term goals, get them down on paper if you can, and just start thinking about them and how you can change your habits now or tweak your habits right now to be more mindful of those goals. Keep debts low, keep your credit score in good shape, and make sure you are considering whenever you are going into debt if there is going to be a return on investment on that debt, and if that would be in turn good debt or bad debt. Keep a healthy mix of regular savings, retirement savings, and investments in your financial portfolio. Create and stick to a budget and keep your savings goals realistic. Do not set crazy goals that you cannot achieve. Make sure they're things that are manageable, that you can achieve, and then you will be set up for good long-term success. All right, that is all I have for you. We're going to skip all this stuff right here. I have my email here. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to shoot me an email. We also have this QR code. I hope everybody can see it on the screen that is being cast. But if you guys are able to take your phones out and scan this QR code, we have a short little survey for these financial presentations. It would really help myself and Zaira and Lisette out if you could just take a minute to fill out that survey. Zaira, we also have office hours coming up. I do not know the dates offhand, but hopefully she can post that information. And if you guys have any other questions about anything we've covered at all in this series, not just long-term investing, but savings, maybe you need help with budgeting, setting savings goals, maybe you have some more questions about how credit works. Maybe you just want to know a little bit more about Patelco and how we can be a good resource for you students. You can set up a short little 30-minute call with me, and we can go over any kind of questions that you have one-on-one. That is all I have. Again, thank you guys all for being flexible. I wish I could be there with you today, but I hope everybody has a good rest of your day, and I will catch you guys later.
It looks like we have a question, Andrew.
Oh yeah, what do we got?
Yeah, sorry, I just had a quick question being regarding Roth IRAs or just generally IRAs. I was under the impression that I think if you're under 50, you can only contribute 6,500 to an IRA. Is that for all the IRAs or only the Roth IRA?
That is, so Roth and traditional, and this is, I know this, what I'm about to say is like generally true. I just don't know what the exact dollar amounts are because the contribution limits or amounts change every year. They do have limits that you can contribute. Normally Roth is a little bit lower, but I don't know exactly what the dollar amount is. I can probably Google it right now though. It's pretty easy to find. Roth contribution limits.
While he's doing that, we do have the money meetings with Andrew, so those are his office hours. So if you're interested, you can book an appointment. The QR code is on the screen. It is 2 dates, and hours are from 11 to 2 p.m. So they're very, very limited. And y'all are the first to get access to the appointment. So make sure to make an appointment if you have any questions that, weren't covered in either today's session or any other session in the past.
And then, yeah, to your question, to point earlier, Roth IRA contribution limit for 2024 is 7,000 for those under 50 and 8,000 for those over 50. So when you're a little older, you can contribute a little bit more. I think last year it was 6,500 and 7,500, so it bumped up a little bit this year. And then once you reach retirement age, which is, I believe 62 is what they're calling it now, or 62 and a half, it has to do with what day you're born in the year or whatever. You can then start withdrawing the funds. And then once you hit an age beyond that, I don't know what that age is offhand, but then the government will start making you do an RMD, which is called a required minimum distribution. So if you've not been pulling funds out of your IRA, but you reach RMD age, the feds will send you a letter that say you're at RMD age, which means you need to at least take this percentage out, this dollar amount out this year from your Roth or traditional IRA. So they do force you to take the money out eventually.
I see. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thank
for
you.
sure. Of course. Thank you guys. Have a good one.
Thank you.
All right.
Something real quick.